Welcome, everyone. Today we have Paul Devine Pride from Paul Devine Pride Bookkeeping here to talk with us about the difference between bookkeeping and CPA and how a bookkeeper can help with your practice. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you. Let's start
Thank you,
with
Sheila.
let's start with basics. What's the role of a bookkeeper, and how is that different from a CPA?
Absolutely. So yeah, the bookkeeper and CPA, that is they're two different functions. The bookkeeper is going to handle your day-to-day financial records. They're going to categorize your transactions. They're going to reconcile all your accounts, your bank accounts, your credit card accounts. They're also going to generate financial reports like your profit and loss, and that's just going to show you how successful your business is doing, how much income is coming in, how much you're spending with expenses. Now, the difference with the CPA is a certified public accountant. They take a ton of exams, they sit at the board, they're state licensed, and they deal with more higher level tax functions like filing your taxes, tax strategy. They're going to help you make sure that you pay the least amount of taxes possible. They can also do like audits and other compliance things. So I like to use the analogy of bookkeepers and CPAs are like nurses and doctors. So the bookkeeper is kind of like the nurse in this analogy. They're going to spend the majority of the time with you. Every single day, they're going to be categorizing your transactions. They're going to be taking your vitals just like a nurse would. And then they're going to generate a report to take to the doctor or the CPA in this analogy. And the diagnosis is going to be filing your taxes. So everything that the nurse or the bookkeeper did, the doctor will take that, the CPA will take that, and they'll be able to file your taxes and hopefully save you a ton of money.
Oh my gosh, I love that analogy. I think I'll remember that forever because sometimes it is confusing to know, well, do you need both or what's the advantages or the parts that both play? So that's a great analogy. Yeah, for how they work together. So really what you're saying is a therapist probably would benefit from having both a bookkeeper and a CPA.
Yeah, I totally think both are necessary, and I'm a big analogy person, so I'll throw another one at you. So, I think maintain good health, you need to eat right every single day. You need to get enough sleep. You need to make sure that you're exercising regularly. The same is with your financial health,
Mm-hmm.
and that is bookkeeping. So, bookkeeping is something that needs to be done consistently, or else it's going to just pile up and you're going to scramble a ton at tax time. And when you're scrambling, you create a ton of stress for yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
also, you might not maximize your deductions because you're under this crunch time and this deadline. You're scrambling to get receipts and expenses in. So, if you can just spend even just one day every week, make that your bookkeeping day, take 1 or 2 hours and be like, hey, I'm going to dedicate this 1 to 2 hours on just bookkeeping and I'm going to get organized for the whole entire week and just do it in small little chunks. And by the end of the year, it's going to be super easy and you won't have the headache.
No, that's a great point because I think, it's real easy to forget something, right? An expense that you had, and you don't want to miss any little piece that's going to help towards deduction down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's tedious. It's not the most sexy thing to be talking about bookkeeping all the time, but you got to brush your teeth twice a day, every day. No one is like super excited to get out of bed, like I get to brush my teeth, but it's something that you need to do and you need to stay on top of it. So that way, when you go to see your dentist, there's not any huge alarming problems. And with
Yeah.
your bookkeeping, if you could just take it from like the smallest bite-sized thing, I'm just going to focus a little bit of time here today, this week. And by the end of the month, I'm going to have a great picture and I'm going to be able to see just how good my business is doing. If I
Yeah.
can focus more on like, oh, this marketing tactic that I did, it's turning, huge ROI, huge return on investment. So I'm going to spend more money on this type of marketing and just kind of have more insights into your business.
Yeah. I love that. Actually, I'm going to take a piece from that because I get proud of myself that I look at it at the end of every month, but I mean, does feel a little bit tedious this month. And so if I would have I think for myself, I don't have a ton of spending, but an hour a week, that is going to feel real good at the end of the month for me to be able to look at that because I like to know what's going on in my accounts too. Yeah. That's great. So, what should a therapist expect when working with a bookkeeper? What's that relationship look like?
Yep, great question. So I think bookkeepers are more than just number crunchers, more than just bean counters. I kind of actually think, not to throw another analogy at you, but I
Take
think
them.
like a good bookkeeper would be almost kind of like a financial therapist, you know? So you're obviously super familiar with therapy and, mental health, and a good therapist is going to teach you about your own mental health and give you tools to just be a better human. A bookkeeper is going to get to know your business, the numbers and the data that make up your business, and they're going to be able to get you more like financially healthy.
Mm,
So I really pride myself on customer service, and I think that a good bookkeeper should have good communication and also be able to respond like in a timely manner. So if we work together and you saw the profit and loss statement that I sent you and you were like, wow, marketing was crazy. I spent so much money on, social media and all these things. Like, what happened? Did I get double charged, or
mm,
did I maybe enter something incorrectly? A good bookkeeper will be able to take that question and then be able to show you that data in a way that's easily digestible and understandable.
okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you don't have good business sense or you're new in starting your private practice, right? There's so much that therapists don't know that aren't taught to us in grad school around owning a business, right? And so we don't always know the right questions to ask too. So being able to have that relationship, you get to understand like where we're at and what we need to with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, especially in the world of therapy, like it's very customer client facing, right? Like all
Hmm.
your clients, you have to spend a lot of time, a lot of energy talking to people. So you
Hmm.
don't really have the time or energy to do the bookkeeping. It's not like bookkeeping is rocket science. You can totally learn it. Anybody can learn it. You can do it on your own, but it just takes a long time to learn. You can totally watch YouTube, but that's just going to take a lot of your time and it's going to take away from what you do best, and that's
Yeah.
taking care of people. So that's why I really think that if you outsource to a professional, you're going to be confident that it's done right the first time. And then you're also just going to have like, someone in your back pocket to be able to talk about these kind of things that aren't very straightforward. But
Yeah.
your numbers and the data and the money, it's something that you can't really get away from because that really is the true story of your business. Like if you
Mm,
don't know your numbers, then you don't really know like if your business is performing well or if you should keep doing certain things or if you should stop doing certain things. Like the numbers really do tell this full story of, your business.
yeah. And the therapist, we like story. Story is important.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So you maybe already kind of touched on this, but any more you would share about kind of the core functions and services that you provide as a bookkeeper?
Absolutely. So I like to keep things really simple, and I think that bookkeepers have three main functions. So number one is going to be categorizing your transactions. I
Mhm.
personally like to do this on a weekly basis. So I'm going to be emailing my client every single week on things that I might not be sure on how to categorize, and I need just a little bit more information on a specific transaction to categorize it
Mhm.
appropriately. And that's kind of where the effective communication comes. Just reaching out. That way, I'm doing my job. But as I get to know your business more, the questions are going to lessen, but I'll still be in your books every single week categorizing it. And of course, if you had any questions along the way, that's when you could ask questions and you could email me and I can send you reports. And then the number two function is going to be bank account and credit card reconciliations. So this is going to take an official document from your bank or your credit card. It's the exact paperwork of all the activity that happened in your bank and your credit card. And this is going to match it up to QuickBooks, your accounting software, your bookkeeping software. And this is going to ensure that your books are 100% accurate and a transaction didn't slip through the cracks. So we're just comparing your actual books to an official document. And number three, the final main core function is going to be generating financial reports. So within the first 5 to 10 business days of each month, I send my client their profit and loss, and then this is just kind of like your financial report card. It's going to show you how much money came in, how much money went out, and then the bottom line number on that report is your net income, and that's the number that you essentially pay your taxes on, and that just shows you, how successful your business is doing, because it's going to be more than just the bank account. Like the money in your bank doesn't give you the true picture of your business because it doesn't take in account like everything that's coming in and everything that's
Mm,
going out. So that financial report card, really key. And that's obviously how you file your taxes too, which is the end goal of bookkeeping. And then two kind of like side services that I personally provide is accounts payable. So that's paying your bills. If you have a lot of bills that need to be paid, those can be inputted by a bookkeeper into your system and then paid at the due date. And
mhm,
then there's accounts receivable. So that would be if you have a private practice and you had some sort of terms with your client, you issue them an invoice and they have a few days to pay it or something like that. A bookkeeper can input that invoice in there, send it to your client, and then also collect the funds. And if it ever gets past due, they can help you collect as well. I do know some bookkeepers offer payroll services,
mm,
but payroll is very complex because there's a ton of different payroll taxes that need to be paid, and it's different depending on where you live. So for that, I recommend just using somebody that specializes in that, like a payroll provider like ADP or Gusto.
mhm.
And I think that's pretty much it. Some bookkeepers might do tax stuff too, but I think, it's kind of better to go to somebody that specializes in that.
Right, for all the updates that happen every year. Yeah, I would
Yep.
imagine that's a piece of it. So it sounds like you're a lot more hands-on than some bookkeepers, which I think is great, especially for someone starting out with their business and who doesn't have a lot of experience with the financial side, and maybe needs a little hand holding. I hear a range and a lot of questions often about, what is the typical cost to have a bookkeeper, so kind of what would you say is the typical range, and kind of where you live in that range for your services?
So I think there's a lot of different ways that bookkeepers may charge for their services. Some may do hourly, but I think that gets a little bit complex and it's harder to track. So how I like to charge is I calculate my client's average number of transactions and then I just create a flat monthly rate. So
Mm,
that way I can just issue out, one invoice per month and you can ensure that everything is going to be done appropriately and you don't have to pay like multiple invoices for each session that I work on your books.
mhm,
So I personally, my minimum is around $150 per month, or that is my minimum. But the average, depending on transactions, most of my clients pay between $200 to $400 per month.
mhm.
So it's pretty affordable, and that's all obviously going to be a deduction as well. So you're
Right.
going to make sure that your books, are kept in order, they're clean, they're organized, you're getting reports, you have somebody in your corner to discuss the numbers to make sure that you understand the numbers, and then also you're just saving on your taxes. So I think it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. That's super helpful. What would you say is a piece of advice that you would give a therapist that's just starting their private practice from a financial perspective?
Absolutely. So number one, I would hire this guy over at PDP Bookkeeping. I hear he's a great guy. He's really good at his job. I've heard great things. He could help you out. But if that's something that's just not, that doesn't make sense for you right now, is hiring a bookkeeper right away, totally understand. You're trying to run a successful therapy practice and you're also trying to do marketing and you're the HR person, you're
Hmm.
the accountant. Like it's a
All the
ton of
hats.
things, all the hats, you're spinning a ton of plates. It gets really complicated. So to keep it simple, I have three kind of tips to just to make sure that you're doing your bookkeeping, hitting the ground running and doing things right from the get-go. So number one would be separate your personal and business finances. I know it seems kind of obvious, but it's a thing that I see people do all the time. they don't realize that, your bookkeeping and your tax filing could just be so much more simple if you just keep things separate, pay yourself, use your personal account for your personal transactions, and then keep everything in your business in just one account.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one, open up a business bank account and a credit card too. Number two, I recommend getting QuickBooks Online. You could use a spreadsheet, but QuickBooks Online is just a super powerful tool. It's around $30 a month, so not that much, and it just makes things just so automated. Because now that you have your business checking and your credit card,
Mm-hmm.
you can just hook this up to your QuickBooks, and then it's just going to automatically feed in all your income and your expenses, and then it's going to give you this nice little list, and then you just say, hey, this is income. I helped this client out. Hey, this is an expense. I'm going to categorize it to that expense. Makes it super easy and streamlined. And then number three, I would say it's just a little bit of tax planning. I'm not a tax expert, but what I can say is a lot of times people at the end of the year, especially as a new business owner, they might be used to a W-2 job when that W-2 job is going to be taking out all your income taxes. So you're
Mm-hmm.
left with your net pay and you can spend that money. But as the business owner, you have to pay all those taxes. So it's important to just set aside any money that comes in, 20 to 30%, depending on how conservative you are. Just set that aside into a separate savings account. So that way, when you do file your taxes, you're not hit with that dreaded tax bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And paying quarterly taxes. Therapists, pay your
Quarterly
quarterly
taxes.
taxes.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Great advice. How can a bookkeeper really help a therapist plan for growth? So if they want to maybe think about taking on and hiring an intern or expanding their services or, deciding, oh, can I afford to, maybe get an office rather than being remote, those kinds of things.
Totally. So if you want to know where you're going, you got to know where you've been. And that's
Mm,
where bookkeeping and accounting really helps you show what happened in the past. And that's
hmm.
super important when you're making bigger financial decisions like, hey, can I hire some help? Can I get this office space? Because you could look in your bank account and you might be like, oh, I have a decent amount of cash in my bank account. I think I can afford these things, but bookkeeping really gives you that confidence to know if you can really afford it.
Yeah.
Because if it's March right now, if you did good bookkeeping, you could look at March 2024, March 2023, and you could see, oh, yeah, I spent this much money at that time, I made this much money. And you can compare month over month all these trends
Hmm.
to just really see if you can afford things like a new office space or hiring.
Yeah. I think that's so important to do with a lot of different things, even looking at our referrals, like where we're getting them and did we get more this year compared to last year? Just looking for themes all across our business. So even financially, yeah, that's super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then if you do get that office space too, like I think bookkeeping can really help you with just making sure that you're paying all your bills. Like, sometimes technology is great until it doesn't work. So let's say you
Hmm.
do get that office space, you have an auto bill payment set up with your landlord, and it's the 20th of the month and you're like, hey, I have way more money in my bank account than I usually have. So then you could look, am I making more money or am I not spending as much? So then when you dig into the expenses, maybe you notice like, hey, that rent payment actually didn't go out. So now I'm kind of past due on my rent payment, but because of your bookkeeping and all the historical data, you're able to kind of like see things that might have fell through the cracks and kind of
Yeah.
just protect you.
Yeah. And there's that confidence too of, getting some confirmation with someone else that really knows finances to be like, no, it is okay to make this decision that you're wanting to make or whatever. Yeah. Or help you get on this. Maybe you have a goal for the next year of like where you want to be and what's going to help you get there based off of your spending or what your finances. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean I totally get it. Yeah, like we said earlier, sometimes it kind of seems like a chore to do your bookkeeping, but I just really think even if you don't work with me, I think it's just something that, a small business owner might not think about just the
Hmm.
importance of it, because it really just tells you how your business is really doing. And it's just exact data and almost kind of a science to show that your business is doing good. So
Yeah.
I think once you start to learn a little bit more about bookkeeping, whether you work with a bookkeeper or not, or if you just learn it on your own, I think it actually becomes more exciting because you're able to just say, like, oh, okay, I am making more money, I am
Yeah.
spending less money. And, it's nice to just be able to see for sure rather than having like this kind of feeling that, am I doing okay?
Hmm. Yep. And I mean, not everybody who's a therapist likes to get into those things, right? And like I hear a lot, they don't want to get caught up in some of it, or paperwork can be really daunting, and they just really enjoy the client time, right? But there's all these other pieces to it. And so, if they don't want to do it, I think it's good to get a sense and know for yourself how to do it. But to hire a bookkeeper and the importance of that, especially if you don't like doing this, so that it doesn't overwhelm you at this time of year, right? So for those who might be on the fence for hiring a bookkeeper, what would you say to them? Like what would you say is like the real return on investment for kind of outsourcing this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the number one return on investment is just going to be your time.
Mm,
You don't have to spend time learning. Yeah, like I said, you could totally learn how to do it, but that is going to take a lot of time in addition to the time of actually doing the bookkeeping.
yeah.
So when you hire somebody to help you out, like a bookkeeper, they're taking off, a huge administrative part of your business, and they're just giving you more time. With that time, you can spend more time with your clients, you can get more clients, you can make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, you guys are in the therapy space, so taking care of your mental health is super important. With that time, you can spend more time with your friends, your family, the things that you love. So I think time is just, it's a huge valuable asset. So
Oh,
by
that's so good.
outsourcing that, I think you buy a ton of your time back. And then
Yeah.
also to tie into the mental health kind of aspect too, you're going to reduce stress. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be worrying if you're categorizing things the right way because you
Mm-hmm.
have an expert that knows how to categorize things. They're going to keep things in the most simple kind of format, which is going to help your accountant, your CPA, or your tax preparer when they file taxes. It's going to make it way easier for them too because they're just so busy at tax time. So if you have clean, organized books, they're going to be able to file much faster. And then you're not scrambling to gather all those receipts towards the end of the year. And then also, it's going to save your tax bill too, because if you have a bookkeeper that you pay to do all your bookkeeping, they're going to make sure that they're categorizing every single transaction. Whereas, like, if you run out of time and you let it pile up, you might miss categorizing some things. But if you hire a professional, they're going to stay on it. They're going to take all your transactions with a fine tooth comb and they're going to get everything. And that is literally saving you money right there. So by
Yeah.
spending a little bit more money, you're actually saving a little bit more money.
Yeah, time and money. I love that about plugging with time, right? Because our time is so crucial and we don't have a lot of it. And so we want to spend it doing the things that we love or that are most important. I think that should be for anyone, right? Because it's valuable and we only have so much of it. So, oh, this was so good. Okay, so just the last piece, for therapists listening or anyone in a small business who would be interested in working with you, what's the best way to find you and learn about more about your services?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you search for me on Facebook, Paul Devine Pride, I come out with some funny videos sometimes, or at least I think they're funny. So even if you don't hire me for my services, you can at least follow my page, and I'll give you a bunch of free advice and maybe a little bit of entertainment. You can also go to my website. It's pdpbk.com or pdpbookkeeping.com. And then there's more information on there about pricing and how to contact me. I also do offer a free consultation, so we can get on the phone. I can discuss your QuickBooks or even just like your statements. If you have any questions, I won't charge you anything for that. You can just ask me any kind of bookkeeping question. I nerd out on that stuff. So yeah, definitely go to the website, get in touch with me, and we can just talk about bookkeeping.
I love it. And I love that free consultation. We offer those in our world. So we love that. Oh my gosh. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you. Anyone interested in working with Paul, I will have all of his information and all his contact also posted in the chat. So thank you so much for being here and answering these questions and fleshing out with your lovely analogies of the difference. I love that. I really will not forget that. And thanks everyone for watching.